You know, I can't recall the number of times in my broadcasting career that I have talked about the issue of debt. And now with inflation rates, as predicted by the Reserve Bank and Treasury, wildly inaccurate interest rate increases are far from over. We are in for a rough and uncomfortable ride. The debt is a consequence of government spending. There's no other way of putting it. We saw during coronavirus wild, reckless and unnecessary spending when people who weren't at risk were told they couldn't work and businesses were closed and billions of dollars in compensation was dished out. To say nothing of the notion that we were told the vaccinations were free, the boosters were free, the testing was free, nothing is free. We've never been told what the pharmaceutical companies were paid for what was allegedly free. Billions of dollars, I suspect. But at the end of the day, you and I will pay for it. To put this in perspective, our debt is now 42.5% of GDP. Gough Whitlam was regarded as an economic dunce. His was 24.5% of GDP. Someone in government is going to have to get serious about managing our money, because the budget papers tell us that the debt will climb to 44.9% of GDP in 2 years' time. Now, forget the politics. That, under the Morrison Liberal government, is almost twice as bad as anything by a Labor government in the last 50 years. It will be a long while before Liberal governments can talk about, quote, strong economic management. But back to the wonderful people at the Institute of Public Affairs. We speak to Daniel Wild every week because he has things to say. In a statement released this week, Daniel Wild, the Deputy Executive Director of the Institute of Public Affairs, said, and I quote, "The consequence of 2 decades of reckless government spending is set to be multiplied as rapidly rising interest rates will cause an explosion in the federal government's debt repayment obligations." Daniel joins me. Daniel, thank you for your time. Look, it is a very important issue that we focus on debt, but there is no comfort in these figures, is there?
No, there's no comfort at all, Alan, and great to be with you as always. What we know, and as you identified, is inflation is increasing rapidly, interest rates are going up rapidly, and what that means is the massive debt burden that we now have of almost $1 trillion, that's going to accelerate because the interest payments on debt will keep going up. What our analysis identified is that at a cash rate of just 5%, the interest payments on debt will go from $20 billion today to $75 billion.
That's B for
by the
billion.
End of the decade.
B for billion.
B for billion each and every year. Now, that would make interest payments on debt the third largest spending item of any government spending item on the books. Higher, more than double what we spend on defence, more than double what we spend on education, and 3 times what we spend on the NDIS. So this issue of debt is getting worse. And as you rightly identify, Alan, we need to cut spending and we need to cut it very fast to get the debt payments down.